Happy Friday to all. Let's get set up. What's up, Marky? Just coming on quick to say hello, talk a little sports. We're going to cover the game tonight. Please like, share, subscribe. It's snowing everywhere. I'm getting my first snowstorm over here on the East Coast, at least in my area today. Coming down pretty good. It's going to be coming down. Supposedly, it's supposed to be some snow during tonight's Notre Dame versus Indiana game. This should be a pretty good game, especially if it's bad weather. It might keep this score close, actually. I'm excited to see this college football playoff. I have some problems with the teams that have been picked. I don't think they got the 12 best teams necessarily, but I want to see how it plays out. Oh, what's up, higher levels? Wow, damn, Mark. Yeah, we're just hanging, talking some sports. We can talk about anything. I just wanted to hop on and, hang out and shoot the shit for a little bit. We always do a show with clips, and I've been working a bit lately. I've been busy lately with work, so I haven't been able to do lives like I normally do. But I still wanted to come on and talk for a little bit, say what's up. Like I said, we will be covering the game tonight. If you guys are able to hang out, should be a fun game. I think Notre Dame pulls it out unless they don't show up. Notre Dame's had a horrible habit of, throughout my years as a fan of Notre Dame, they always lose the big ones, it seems like, at least since I've been alive. We'll see what happens tonight. Notre Dame's got a really good running game, and their passing game is average at best. That game will be on at 8 o'clock. If you guys can tune in and watch it with me, we're going to have some fun. Watch it on your own TV. We'll just hang out, watch the game, shoot the shit, talk. Something lighter. Like I said, I'd be tuning it down a little bit going into the new year. Yes, I like the Patriots, even though they suck right now. But there's supposed to be some foul weather during the game, so it should be fun to watch. And it's a big in-state rivalry, so I'm excited for it. And then you got 3 games tomorrow. I don't know who's going to win the Super Bowl, Connor. It's hard to say right now. I mean, everyone's kind of beat up. I was thinking the Lions looked good for a while, but they got a ton of injuries. And now Pat Mahomes is hurt for the Chiefs. I don't think there's really a front runner. I think whoever's the healthiest going into the playoffs will probably win. Yeah, the Chiefs look good. I mean, I had the Chiefs probably winning it all, but Mahomes is hurt. He's supposed to be able to play this weekend. I don't know if they're going to play him, but. So, yeah, tonight we got Notre Dame, Indiana, 8 o'clock. Check your local listings for where that's going to be played. And then tomorrow you got SMU versus Penn State at noon. Eastern. These are all Eastern Standard Time games. SMU versus Penn State at noon. Clemson versus Texas at 4. And then Tennessee, Ohio State at 8. Yeah, I don't really watch ESPN that much, Mark. I don't like the way that they've gone with their coverage of things. I don't like how they got all woke and shit a long time ago. But I'm excited for the game tonight. I'm excited for the games tomorrow. I'm excited for Christmas. I'm excited to start the new year. I'm excited for President Trump to get in. I'm really looking forward to 2025. I really am. A new year, new beginnings for everyone. Connor, you play hockey? Who's your hockey team, Connor? Pontus, it sounds like you've been touched. It sounds like you got problems. Sounds like you need a hug. Temptation should be resisted, absolutely. You can't do everything you want all the time. Yeah, having a healthy gut's important. You're right. You're not getting enough of the right food, you will feel like shit. No fentanyl over here. Nice try, though. No shit. You play in Rhode Island. No kidding. That's cool. Yep. I've heard of the Vikings. There's some good hockey teams, there used to be. I don't know about anymore. Rhode Island used to have some good hockey teams. Mount used to be the best. They won so many championships in a row. I can't even remember. I think it was at least 18 or 19. Yep. You too, fuckface. Have a good day, you little troll. I'm from New England. Boston area. I don't say what state. I just say the Boston area. It's the internet. Don't tell people where you're from. I like the Bruins, but they break my heart every year. So I don't waste too much time watching them anymore. I'm sick of watching Brad Marchand kill himself with a bunch of guys that don't give a fuck around him. Bruins end up screwing over their fans every year. I watched all them years with Tuukka Rask. Oh, he let in the worst goals. Save all the tough ones, let in an easy goal. Lose a playoff game. I remember one game he let a puck go all the way the length of the ice into the goal. Like from center ice. But yeah, we'll be covering that game. I didn't know they were fighting this weekend, higher levels. I thought that fight was later in the year. I thought that fight was in 2025. I don't know. I don't think Fury loses to him twice. I'll be surprised. What's up, Kai? What's up, Ken? But yeah, we're going to watch the game tonight, hang out. Should be a cool game to watch. It's supposed to snow quite a bit during the game. That's what they're saying right now anyway. Should be a fun game to watch. But I just wanted to say hello, talk to you guys a little bit. I wasn't able to go live yesterday because I was busy. But I'll be rooting for the Gypsy King. I don't really like Usyk. I'm not even sure Usyk won that. Thank you for checking in, Kai. Have a good night with your honey. And your puppy. Happy birthday to the pup. You know, with the Ukrainian war and stuff, I don't know. I know Usyk knocked him down, but other than that, he didn't do much in the fight. Oh, we might have to watch that fight tomorrow then. What's up, Crispy? How you doing, buddy? But I'm excited for the games. Yeah, I used to do snow removal. I still do snow removal, not like I used to do mock, but I used to do all that shit with schools in my area. A friend of mine has the contract. Now I just do I do regular people's yards. I just do residential. But I used to do all the city buildings and schools. My friend had the contract for them. Long, long days. You start running out of places to put snow. I'm glad the missus is doing well, Crispy. But yeah, we got some sports this weekend. I'm excited. I'm definitely excited. Let's check out a video, what they have to say about the weather report and the game preview for tonight. I will be going live around 8 o'clock if you guys want to hang out, watch the game. Notre Dame versus Indiana. First game of the college football playoff championship. Should be fun. Notre Dame's a special place, too. They haven't had a home playoff game there, I don't think, in ever. Maybe they have, but it was years ago. So this should be fun. Good for you, Billy. Salute. I hope you enjoy your weekend. Be safe. Be careful. Stay away from momos. Well, I want to check out this weather report and see what they got to say about tonight's game. And I'm going to go make a cocktail myself.
Already feels like Christmas. It's like that moment when, like, you've opened the presents, you know what you've expected, and now you're just waiting for the day to sort of
great way to put it. Yes,
Christmas. Jordan mentioned it. We're getting underway with Notre Dame, Indiana. It is a big one tonight. The Fighting Kurt Signettis facing off with the Fighting Marcus Freeman. Kind of feels like the underdog conversation in this one. I like that this is how we're kicking off the expanded college football playoff. And Jordan, I got to be honest with you, the matchup's going to be good on the field, but they're really going to be dealing with some difficult weather conditions.
Most definitely. You know, we're all warm and cozy here in the studio.
Good, Billy. Thank you.
And it's going to be very different out in South Bend. They're going to be all bundled up. Let's go ahead and get a forecast from CBS News meteorologist Ray Patelin.
It's that magical time in the college football season where you have those big time matchups. One of them, Indiana at Notre Dame in South Bend. And while the game's between Indiana and Notre Dame, it looks like the cold is going to be one of the big players in this one. Cloudy skies and a kickoff temperature at 28 degrees. There's going to be a lake effect snow band still trying to fire off of Lake Michigan. That is going to usually, and in a situation like this, favor areas to the west. So we'll get the clouds and maybe an occasional flurry or two trying to push over into South Bend, but I don't think snow is going to be an issue for this game. The cold, that's a different story. Game time temperature, 28 degrees, couple flakes around. Temperatures are going to fall throughout the course of the game slowly into the mid-20s, so it is going to be cold from start to finish on this one, with snow being the least impactful thing of it all. Back to you at HQ.
All right, sounds good. Both teams avoiding an impactful snowfall. Thanks so much to CBS News meteorologist Ray Patelin. Joining me now here on CBS Sports HQ is our own Chip Patterson and Tom Fornelli. Gentlemen, it is great to see you. I know you are fired up for the college football playoff to finally be here. You just heard from Ray Patelin, both these teams avoiding an impactful snowfall, but those conditions, Tom, they're still going to be there. It's still going to be cold. So how does a team like Indiana match up in this game? They have all the odds against them in these conditions on the road. How do they match up in this one?
You know, I think there's an aspect to a weather game like this. Clearly, Indiana being in Indiana, the cold weather and the snow is nothing new to them. So as far as the mentality and being able to play in it, that's not a situation where maybe if you saw a team coming from the south that was used to playing in warmer weather. Where I think that this could...
At Stop and Shop, we've got what you're looking for. Lower chicken prices that are hard to miss. Get more cluck for your buck at Stop and Shop.
This is a challenge to make a par with a wedge from 308 yards. I've got 170 left. There we have it. That could be good. Do I get to use my putter? No? So I got to putt with a wedge.
Play to the Hoosiers' advantages. A lot of times weather can be a bit of a neutralizer in a football game. So I think if you were watching that weather forecast from Ray, Indiana, you're probably hoping that maybe we get a bit more snow than they're expecting. Maybe the wind shifts and that lake effect snow starts bringing it towards South Bend, because when you get those kind of sloppy conditions, we've seen Indiana, they are the underdog, they are the Cinderella story. But when you look at the talent on both of these rosters, I think it's fair to say Notre Dame is the more talented team. So if you can find a way to neutralize that, maybe cause a few guys to start slipping on some, icy fields, that could work to your benefit. But I don't think it's going to have a huge impact in the game. But if I am the Hoosiers, I'm hoping for snow.
Yeah, I am looking at Indiana in this spot, and I'm seeing how they are tackling in the open field. Because one thing that Notre Dame has that we know about is that really good run game. And it is really a three-headed monster because you do have Jeremiah Love, Anjadarian Price, but also Riley Leonard. He is an effective runner, and he's got a big, strong body that he can bounce off tacklers when it's 68 degrees outside. He might be even more impactful in this cold weather, in these frigid conditions, because we grew up playing football in the snow and in cold weather and the great chance to tackle your friends out there. And you know what it really hurts to do? Tackle. And so I'm watching Indiana's defense in terms of how they tackle in the open field, because sometimes just one missed tackle in a game like this could end up being 40 yards that impact an entire drive. So can Indiana, when it gets to that second and third level, can they bring down those Notre Dame rushers, because those guys are strong and those guys run physical? That's going to be a huge part when it comes to the weather impacting this game.
Yeah, Chip, just to piggyback off of that for a moment, I think we're all confident Indiana can win this game. I just don't know how confident we are that they actually will win this game. Tom, do you think that Indiana's schedule has left them a bit unprepared for their college football playoff debut?
Yes and no. I think that if you take like a college basketball mentality, you see a lot of teams, particularly early in the season with their non-conference schedule tougher games to try to prepare them for conference play and possibly the NCAA tournament. But you can't really afford to do that in football, because for a team like Indiana, one loss typically knocks you out if you're not supposed to suffer it. But I think what works to their advantage is, while they didn't have the most difficult schedule, their two most difficult games were two of the final three games they played, that Michigan game and their road trip to Ohio State. So I think as far as environment, going to Ohio State, playing the Buckeyes on the road and losing that game, I think that prepares them for what they should expect tonight in a Notre Dame stadium that will be full, it will be loud, and they're going to be facing a very good team. So I think they have a better idea of what to face because of that game.
Yeah, I also like the way that it unfolded. I have never been mistaken for a marathon runner, but I hear that when you're training, you build up to it, right? And that's what we saw with Indiana. The games against Washington, the games against Nebraska, we went into those games thinking maybe this is when the Hoosiers finally fall apart. And they just absolutely dismantled them. And so the fact that they ramped up to their toughest challenges of the season, Michigan and Ohio State, kind of gave them the confidence in a more natural way. And so if it had been the opposite, where they take a 23-point loss to Ohio State, maybe say the last week of September, and then blow out a bunch of cupcakes coming down the stretch, I might be more concerned. But they had felt that hostile territory, as Tom mentioned. They have gone up against one of the most talented rosters, one of the most physical rosters in the entire country with Ohio State, and the same could be said for Michigan's defensive front. So I do think that they are seasoned and ready for it based on the way that things ended. The thing that I'm curious about for Indiana in terms of its strength of schedule is, what have they shown in terms of weakness against those best teams that Notre Dame might be looking to exploit? Because it was very clear in the game against Michigan, a 5-point win, in the loss to Ohio State, a 23-point defeat. When you got Indiana out of its comfort zone, it did not look like the juggernaut that it looked like for much of the season. So what did they show? What can Notre Dame exploit? That's the thing that I'll probably be looking for in terms of the strength of schedule impact here.
It's interesting because I think a lot of folks do point fingers at Indiana being the team in this matchup who's unprepared, maybe the more inexperienced player in this matchup. But let's be honest here. Notre Dame, they haven't had a gauntlet of a schedule this season. Take a look at this, you guys. I get it. They're a much different team since that loss to Northern Illinois, but they maybe have been just slightly better tested than in Indiana. So, Chip, is it fair to say that this is actually the biggest test for the Irish all season?
I do, especially with the way that we saw Texas A&M kind of fall short of expectations at the end of the season. And that was even a Texas A&M team that was very different than the one that finished the season. And I really will go back to the game against USC, because not only did they go up against a lot of power conference competition that did not live up to preseason expectation, but they also didn't get tested by a lot of passing attacks like what Indiana has. They didn't have to face quarterbacks like Curtis Rourke. They didn't have to face the kinds of wide receiver play, Elijah Surratt, Omar Cooper, that Indiana does have. And I go back to that regular season finale against USC, because what the Trojans were able to do against this Notre Dame defense, which again, against all those other power conference teams, dominated them. But USC had.
And how are the numbers looking?
Please like, share, subscribe if you haven't. Checking out some of tonight's pregame report, what some of the top people in the country think what's going to happen, why they like each team. Notre Dame's is my favorite team in college football, them in Georgia. So I'm rooting for Notre Dame tonight. I think they should be able to win.
360 through the air. And so not only are we taking a step up in competition in terms of a lot of what Notre Dame played when you face Indiana, the thing that I've got my eyes on is how does that pass defense look? Because what we saw against USC was not like everything else. And I think Indiana might even be a step up in terms of passing attack from USC.
I feel like looking at these two teams and viewing their schedules is a great way to just compare how we view teams that we had expectations for versus the teams that nobody expected anything from, because I think you can very much argue that Notre Dame has played a schedule very similar to what Indiana played, and that Notre Dame hasn't played a team nearly as good as the Ohio State team that Indiana lost to. So we sit here and we question Indiana's credentials while ignoring that that Notre Dame hasn't played anybody as good as the Buckeyes, and their one loss came to Northern Illinois. So I think it's an interesting situation. I'm not trying to say Notre Dame's not a very good team, because they are. It's just they get that benefit of the doubt because they were supposed to be here, whereas nobody looked at Indiana before the season started and said, oh yeah, they'll be playing the college football playoff.
Yeah, definitely didn't see this coming. All right, guys, I got to get a best bet from both of you from South Bend. Irish 6.5-point favorite heading into this game. They've covered in each of their last 8 games. That's the longest active streak right now in the FBS. Tom, what's your best bet ahead of this one?
It's not very fun, but I am going to lay the points with Notre Dame as the favorite because I like this Indiana team. They have been fun to watch all season long, but I can't help but think of how that offense struggled in those games against Michigan and Ohio State. The two best defenses that they saw this year, they really couldn't move the ball. As Chip mentioned earlier, once you get them out of their comfort zone, they didn't have a whole lot of answers. And they're facing a Notre Dame defense tonight that is just as good, if not better than those two. So I have concerns about their ability to score, so I'm going to lay it with Notre Dame.
It's the end of the season. If you don't think I've got treasure maps that I'm pulling out of the chest left and right, you've lost your mind. Okay, so here's what we're tagging together. It's a really tough needle to thread, but I think we can do it. We're going to start with the Notre Dame team total over, which has been a bit of a wagon coming down the stretch. This Fighting Irish have a little bit of momentum to them, and I don't mean momentum like the way most people talk of it. I mean momentum like a snowball that gathers more snow and just rolls down a hill and becomes an avalanche. And that is what happens with this offense. They lean on you, they run the ball, and all of a sudden 4, 5, 6 yards becomes 14, 15, 16. And we have seen them just absolutely crush their team total overs all throughout the back half of the season. I think that ground game can play a big role in that, as well as Riley Leonard's legs in the red zone scenario. And if I'm going to go out, I'm going out on my sword. The best fourth quarter team in America, Indiana, even in a 23-point loss to Ohio State, covered in the fourth quarter with this pre-flop fourth quarter number. So we're going to go Notre Dame team total over. We're going to go Indiana in the fourth quarter plus 1.5 and thread that needle. Follow the treasure map. X marks the spot.
Oh, gentlemen, you got us locked in. I got Haley taking notes. She's placing bets. We are ready to win some money. The college football playoff begins tonight in South Bend. You know, we've made it through 14 weeks of the regular season, but it seems like the fun is just beginning. It's the first meeting between these two teams since 1991. Hoosiers hoping to get some revenge over Notre Dame team that has had their hand at home. Indiana 0-14 against the Irish at their place. Will they finally get it done tonight? Find out. Kickoff from South Bend at 8 p.m.
This game should be a good game. Hopefully it's not a blowout. That's my biggest thing is I don't want a blowout. Even though I love Notre Dame, I like to watch games that are close. It's more fun for everyone. That's one thing I don't know if Indiana's ready for. Notre Dame's defense has looked good. We'll see what they have tonight. Notre Dame also has a history of shit in their pants in the playoffs. So have to just wait and see. Game time, 8 o'clock. I should be signed on around 7:45 to start covering the game. But if you guys aren't doing nothing, I'd love to have you come hang out, watch the game. I'll do play-by-play if people want. If not, we can shoot the shit while we watch the game. It depends on what people want. Whatever people want, I end up doing. But I'm excited. Let's see what the poll says. 50-50. Wow. Some people like the playoff. Some people don't. Right down the middle. 28 votes, 14 each. My only thing with it is, yeah, that's something you got to worry about, Mark. And that's what Indiana does. Notre Dame doesn't do that as much, and they don't have to worry about it as much being at home. It's funny you said that. I'm glad you know your shit, obviously. Yeah, they use a lot of they use a silent count, so they just clap. And that's why you always see them doing that fake clap that no one ever goes for. If the fans show up and Indiana doesn't jump all over them and quiet that place down, and Notre Dame's defense does what it's capable of, it could be a long night for Indiana. One of my worries for Notre Dame, though, if I do have a worry, they don't throw the ball great. They've done it well at times, but at other times it has looked bad. They do run the ball a lot. And they have a really good running game, which will be interesting to see too, because if I'm not mistaken, I think Indiana has the best run defense in the nation. So it's like each team's each team's strength is going to be tested.
Hey there.
What's up, Black? So it'll be interesting to see. It should be a fun game to watch. The in-state rivals. One thing to look out for is Indiana's never won at Notre Dame. I know this is a different Indiana team, but hopefully tonight's not the night they break the curse. They did beat Michigan. They looked horrible against Ohio State. And then you've seen Ohio State versus Michigan. And you're like, is Ohio State as good as we thought they were? I don't know. We're going to have to wait and see. I'm just going to have to wait and see. I also think it's going to be interesting what the weather does. Because the weather gets nasty, and you got a team like Notre Dame that can run the ball down your throat, it's going to get hard for. It's not when it snows. The defense is at a disadvantage. On offense, you know where you're going. On defense, you don't. And Notre Dame's got a good offensive and defensive line. And I don't think they're going to try and do something different just because they're playing a good run-stopping team. They say that about a lot of quarterbacks, Liam. They say that about everyone until they win one. Right? Everyone's had that said about them. You never know. But I agree, he's not the greatest passing quarterback. But he can do a lot of other stuff. And the way they run the ball, if they run the ball effectively, he doesn't have to be. Think about it. I know there are. You're absolutely right. I don't think Notre Dame's going to win it all anyway. But look at Georgia. Look at the kid Stockton. They knocked off Texas. He couldn't throw a pass over 15 yards. All they did was run screens and little fucking misdirection plays and options. You know, we're not in the NFL. College football is a lot different. A lot. And Jordan Faison's not garbage. He's not trash. He's a good receiver. Notre Dame's going to do what they do, I think. They're going to run and run and run and run. Yeah, it's going to hurt Georgia, absolutely. But Georgia's still so good that it might not. They were still able to beat Texas and came from behind. Texas has probably got one of the better quarterbacks as far as other people are concerned. The two top quarterback prospects, neither of them are in the playoffs. So I don't understand your argument. Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward are the two top quarterbacks in everyone's mock draft. Neither is in the playoffs. So I don't understand your argument. It depends on the health of Pat Mahomes. Yeah, but if the quarterback was so important, Liam, in college football, that's what I'm trying to say, Liam. If it was so important to have one of the best quarterbacks, why are the two best prospects coming out not in the college football final? Shedeur Sanders has a lot of talent around him. Cam Ward has a lot of talent around him. Miami got a bunch of guys from Florida. It's the best place to grab kids out of high school. One of them, a top 2 or 3 state, if not the top. So it could be safe to say There's not a team left with a top quarterback besides maybe Texas. Boise State don't have one. Oregon, he's all right. We have to wait and see. Liam, if you want to be right, Liam, you can be right. I just disproved what you said. If the top two quarterbacks in the draft aren't in the college football playoff, how important is the quarterback position in college? It's important, but it's not as it's a team game. It's a team game. Yeah, probably. Mock. He can't stay at Texas and sit the bench forever. I think defense is the most important thing in college football. What up, Cooper Dupe? Thank you. I mean, your argument is that Notre Dame doesn't have a good enough quarterback. They don't have a national championship winning quarterback. Liam, your argument was Notre Dame doesn't have a quarterback that's good enough to win a national championship. The top college prospects at quarterback, none of them are in the playoff. In the top 10 picks. At the quarterback position, there is not one. Do you see the hole in your argument? Or you just want to be ignorant? Let's see what these guys think about the Notre Dame defense, and Indiana can score on them. Quarterback's so important, but every team in the playoff, besides probably Texas, doesn't have a top quarterback. And even Georgia with Beck. Beck wasn't that good. Beck isn't a fucking NFL quarterback. Not a starter right away, if at all. Plus, I think he's old. I love people, man. People come up with the funniest shit. You disproved your own method, Liam.
We begin on Friday night with Indiana and Notre Dame. Danny, Indiana absolutely mauled like 9 or 10 of the opponents on its schedule. And then against 2, things were a little bit more difficult. Notre Dame is clearly closer to Ohio State and Michigan than they are to Purdue. Do you think Indiana? Where does this matchup hinge in terms of how it's going to go with the Hoosiers on the road?
I think Indiana's defense will be fine. I think they played really well against both Michigan and against Ohio State. Against Ohio State, the score got sideways. You had the 2 touchdowns that you gave them on special teams. So I think their defense will be fine. I think the biggest thing is, can they put points on Notre Dame's defense? Because they got stifled. I mean, that was the one thing we talked about after that Ohio State game, was they were overwhelmed. Curtis Warren, was it the opening drive that they scored? They came down and looked great, and then middle part of the game, the second and third quarter, and the fourth, when the game was kind of over, they were kind of garbage time, trying to come back. They were able to score some points, but for the majority of the game, they could not move the ball. That to me is, can their offense put up points against Notre Dame's defense?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at them statistically, they're top top 5 in a lot of key categories. Like points per drive, they're at 3.57. That's second. Their offensive success rate of 51.7% is tied with Miami for the best in the country. But you look at those numbers, and then you compare them to those two games we're talking about. It went from 3.57 points per drive on the season to 1.52 against Michigan and Ohio State, and their success rate in those two games dropped to 39.8%. Their explosive play rate, 15% on the season, 6.1% in those games. And even further, like, they didn't turn the ball over all year, but guess what? Two games they turned the ball over it. Michigan and Ohio State. So it is a serious question for me in this matchup because Notre Dame's defense is at that same level. And where I think that this could be even more difficult is I do think secondary-wise, like Notre Dame is closer to Ohio State, like, and it's better than Michigan because the Michigan team Indiana faced didn't have Will Johnson. Like, they were banged up in the secondary. So they were even still able to really exploit that despite the guys they were missing. I don't know how explosive they're going to be. I feel like if Indiana is going to score points in this game, it's going to have to do it with like 8-9 play drives, which are going to be very hard to do on the road, probably in these weather conditions. So it's a legit concern for this one. But I'm also with you, Danny, whereas I look at the defensive side of the ball, I think Indiana matches up pretty well. I don't think they will be as dominant as they have been because I do think Notre Dame's offensive line is pretty damn good, and we saw them struggle against, good offensive lines this year where they faced them a little bit. They didn't get overpowered, but they didn't have the same kind of success that you expected or saw in other games. So can they stop Riley Leonard? Can they stop the run game enough to force Riley Leonard to become more of a passer? Because that's not what Notre Dame really wants to do. Like, it's not what Riley Leonard's best at. It's not what you're going to want him to do in these weather conditions. That's what they have to do to give themselves a chance to win this game, and they're going to have to force turnovers. So I think it's going to be a fun and interesting game. I don't know how confident I am in Indiana winning this game unless Notre Dame makes a lot of mistakes.
I think Indiana can win this game, but even after 13 games or 12 games, I still have some reservations about parts of Indiana's defense. I think that defensive line is actually pretty damn good, especially like college good. And they have a couple guys who I think will play pro football, but also a couple who are probably just good for the college level. But even though I don't love the Irish passing game, where would you rank Notre Dame's passing game amongst the opponents Indiana has faced so far? I'll read them off here. Just tell me, like, when I get to a team you think is better. FIU, Western Illinois, UCLA, Charlotte, Maryland, Northwestern, Nebraska, Washington, Michigan State, Michigan, Ohio State, Purdue, Notre Dame. I think Notre Dame is second, or maybe because that's back when Billy Edwards was healthy.
I was going to say Maryland might like a word.
They could chuck it around back then.
And Ty Felton stresses your defensive backs in a way where you got to care about him.
Irish are unquestionably top 2 or top 3 amongst the best passing games that Indiana would have seen, which is not weird to say because it's a playoff game. So, like, if they're not, then it's like, how the hell did they make the playoff? But to me, that's sort of one of the weaknesses of the Irish team, and yet they're still, I think, demonstrably better than almost everybody Indiana has faced so far throwing the football. So, totally agree. Your only real chance is to sell out against the run early, see if you can get Irish off schedule, and then maybe they fall back on the – look, they actually have not been very good, even relative to leverage at throwing the ball when they're behind the chains. And maybe hopefully you have like a high variance day in your favor where maybe some picks or maybe just some of those balls going complete. But there is some chance that Notre Dame's like, oh, you're gonna like load up the box here. We're gonna come out throwing because
I don't think they do that.
Good at DB.
I don't think they can throw. I don't think they're very good throwing the football. I think if you can take away the run, Notre Dame could be in trouble. And I would flip the script and say, which passing offense has Notre Dame faced that's as good as this Indiana passing offense? They haven't really. Tyler Shuck was better.
Army, Navy.
Right. I mean, and when they faced Georgia Tech, it was without Haynes King. It was, and it wasn't even the other.
They were better passing. They would have been with.
I mean, A&M certainly not a great passing team.
That was before Marcel Reed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
USC.
And that was their hardest. Like, if it wasn't for 2 pick sixes, that game was. And there were 2 pick sixes. They did get them, but still, like, they put up some good numbers on them.
No, it's a fair point.
Maybe it's a stupid question because, of course, a playoff team is going to be amongst the best you faced, or should be.
Right.
But yeah, like, is there a chance this thing shoots out?
Over?
Well, yeah, because I'm thinking, like, look, both these teams have not faced they faced a lot of like really bad quarterback play this year. Both of them.
My initial, like, right off the rip thought on this game was that it could be higher scoring. The conditions are the only thing. Like, if this game was played in Lucas Oil Stadium, I would think that it is set up well for both offenses to be able to have success. But with everything that's going on, where it might be a snow game, super duper cold.
The good news is it's
pretty good at the lines of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. I mean, we might just have a good old fashioned tough off.
It's not
that's the other
be
one.
too windy, so
I do think Notre Dame's very good up front, but they're more like, I don't know, like mid-round of the draft type good. I don't think they have a lot of guys who are like top half of the draft. There's no chance to physically block them, you know? But, I mean, they have already faced – Louisville moved it on them. Louisville, I think, is – the power ratings would say Louisville is basically the same quality of team as Indiana.
Yeah.
Right? Because Indiana's played a garbage schedule.
And Louisville got destroyed.
USC, kind of the same thing. But Indiana doesn't beat itself in the way those teams do. Can Notre Dame make them so uncomfortable that they do start beating themselves? Because the one time they did was at Ohio State ball game.
Also, no disrespect to Tyler Shuck and Jaden Maeva, but I think Curtis Works a better quarterback than both of them.
Right.
Yes, 100%.
Do we know Jeremiah Love injury? Any update on that?
The intel I've got is that I wouldn't worry too much about it.
Yeah, and Cross, too, supposed to be. Al Golden was talking about Cross should be good to go. And I know that when they had.
Jack's not going to play?
I have not heard anything along those lines.
Well, I mean, remember, it was like, in theory, he could make it back for a playoff game if everything went perfect. So just throwing that out there.
It's going to be interesting. Gonna be interesting. I feel good about Notre Dame tonight, though. I do. I think. What's up, whatever? What's up, dog crap? Hope you guys are well. I think Notre Dame is gonna bring it tonight. I really do. I think they're ready to fucking roll. And the team showing up right now to South Bend Stadium. Let's check it out.
Even by Sandra Bullock or just by you? No, by me. Sandra Bullock and Tim McGraw were great. But they give me this script, and I said, I got to memorize all this stuff to be in this movie. And the guy said, yeah. And I said, hey, I lived it. Just let me do it my way, and if you don't like it, I'll do your script. So we did it my way, and it was good.
How many takes?
Well, you know, you take 3 or 4 times from different angles. We weren't repeating much.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. You're good at everything.
You know what thing? He dropped in the drapery thing with the balances. That was all you too. That's pretty impressive. But I'd have to bring up Miracle on Ice was one of the greatest movies. That's what I was going to say. Yeah. And Seabiscuit for the horse races. Yeah. When he's telling the guy that's going to ride the horse to look more admiral in the eye on the backstretch. I know. That gives me cold chills. Yeah. I love it. I love that one. Cold chills. Speaking of, the Seabiscuit. There come the Irish. That's like a movie set right there with the lights.
Here come the Irish.
Look at them. They're yelling to us. Come on now. Yeah. All right. There's Marcus. That's a sweet scene right there. That's cool. Look at that. Kirk, you got a favorite sports movie? I would go Rory, the 1980 Olympics movie Miracle. Yeah, Miracle. That's my bad. And the other one, Miracle. Yeah, Glory. Yeah, that was pretty good. But that's a sports movie. Hey, Steve, is there any movie about tight ends? No. Kirk stole Miracle. I would also baseball movies, Major League Bull Durham. Excellent. Both are excellent. Really good. Not probably for this age group here. questions at Ohio State. There are all of these, inspiring movies and teaching you to overcome adversity. Cody Simon from Ohio State said, it's got to be The Water Boy. That movie makes more sense. So is Happy Gilmore.
What's up, Duncan? Where the hell you been?
It's unbelievable. You're on this football
Good to see you, buddy.
Hosting the first college football playoff on a campus, and you're walking into that scene right here.
Just take it all in, man. You got to take it all in.
Can you even imagine the difference right now? I mean, look, you guys mentioned it earlier. This is an old veteran Indiana team. It's not like they're going to be intimidated. But you want to talk about getting jacked up and having the hair stand up on the back of their neck? I mean, they walked right through their campus with their people, right into this absolutely legendary scene of a stadium. You see this in movies, you see this in television shows, documentaries. I mean, we're in the middle of one right now.
It's like a pep rally.
It's insane.
When a team walks through their fans at a pep rally, they have that feel to it.
But, we had to walk the champions of Alabama, and one of the things that I think the fans really appreciated, they were there to support the players on the walk. And when the players acknowledged them and showed their appreciation for it, I think that's really special.
Like you said, it's all a team. It's not just the players. The fans get behind you.
Alignment, vertical alignment.
This is going to be a fun game tonight.
Beat it. Boom, bang. Everybody.
Just inside 2 hours and 20 minutes until kickoff, Notre Dame, an inspiring entrance into Notre Dame Stadium. Upwards of 80,000 people. This has been a tough ticket. Still to come on College Game Day, the new head coach of the Tar Heels, Bill Belichick, is going to join us as well. And what about playing games at home during the playoffs? We'll break that down. You come back to College Game Day.
I love it. I think this is going to be good for college football. I think this is going to be good for college football. I'm very excited. I don't know if they got the 12 best teams necessarily, but the way they set it up is the way they set it up. Everyone agreed to it. So here we are. It's very hard to get the top 12 teams. You got to go based on schedules, strength of schedules. I mean, there's a million different variables you could use to pick the top 12 teams. There's a lot of good teams that got left out too. Like, I don't really think SMU should be in. There's just some teams that didn't play the type of competition other teams played. But I mean, it is what it is. You don't lose many games and you play Division I. I think it's only fair to give them a crack at the national title, right? You gotta play the games to get to where you're going. But I'm excited for tonight's game and tomorrow's games and going forward. The only thing that bums me out is that, well, hopefully Notre Dame does win. But Notre Dame, my two favorite teams, will have to play each other in the next round. If Notre Dame does win, they will have to play Georgia. And that means one of my top two teams will be out of my favorites. But we will be watching the game tonight. I will go sign on about 7:45. I'll hang around for a few minutes right now. We can talk about sports, football, whatever. English gent. I'm sorry you weren't feeling well. Good to see you back. I was wondering what happened because I haven't seen a lot of people lately. I think people are just busy with the holidays and life. I get it. I'm not mad about any of it. Don't take it that way. And I think a lot of people enjoyed watching the channel following the election. And now that the election's over, people, there's not a lot that's been really going on in politics lately. So I haven't been doing much with it. But we will be covering Trump's commencement speech when Trump goes into office. I will be covering that. just enjoying sports. This is my favorite holiday of the year. So I haven't been doing the streams like I normally do. Kind of dialing it back, getting ready for the new year. I'm going to have a lot of new stuff coming this upcoming year in 2025. Please be on the lookout for us. I'm going to be doing a lot more interviews. I'm going to start a real legit podcast this year. I just got a couple microphones in, and I'm getting close to being able to buy a camera. So I'm excited for what's coming. Thank you to everyone that's shared, subscribed, contributed, donated, become a member. Without you guys, none of this is possible. I haven't watched any soccer at all, Dunk. I don't really watch much soccer anymore. I would love to cover soccer, but it's just not big in the United States. Like during the Copa America and during the Euro Cup, I tried to cover some of it, and no one watched my lives about it. And the American team, the way they play, they're not fun to watch. At least during those tournaments, it was not fun to watch. And I played a ton of soccer when I was younger. I loved the sport, but it's just here in America, it's not big. There was a show on Amazon Prime, Newcastle United had. That was awesome. And I don't think they ever came back out with it. And when they didn't come back out with that show, I stopped watching soccer a bit again. Yeah, well, he's got to get an office still, Skelter. Fingers crossed. We got to make a lot of changes, man. Hopefully we can do it. But I am excited for 2025. Yeah, it's awful, Mark. Awful. Awful. Especially because we have an athletic team. Like, they don't, the way they play it, it makes me sick. It makes me sick. They try to play that English style fucking football. It don't work for America. It's not the way we play here. Like, it's bad when you watch the best your country has to offer, and they can't switch fields. When they go to kick the ball to the other side of the field in the air to switch fields and get an attack, and they can't even do that without kicking it out of bounds. It's fucking not fun to watch. It'll drive you nuts if you know anything about soccer. Yeah, you got to. You can't just watch teams that have been doing it that way. It's fucking horrible. It's just horrible. They don't try to play any balls in from like the corners. You know what I mean? Like, they got the horses out there. Fucking play the long ball down the wing and drop a ball into the middle of the box and try and get someone's head on it. Try and cause a deflection. Like, they don't do anything to try and generate offense except for like running sets and trying to like, it's great to, if you can play that way, to play passes and, you know, fuck around with the ball, but you got to have guys that are very skilled to do that shit. You know, the U.S. has some guys that are fucking amazing athletes. Get the ball down on the wings, kick it into the box, and let one of them fucking guys put a head on it or put a foot on it. I know it's like fucking people probably don't like watching it, but it works with the team. If they played like that with the team they had, they would be much better off. Get the ball deep down the other end of the field and put a ball in the box. Cause some fucking mayhem. You can't play the possession game when you can't possess the ball. You know, when you get the ball stolen off you. You know, it's not like we got a fucking Mbappe or a Messi or Ronaldo. We don't have guys like that. But we got some guys that are fast. We got some guys that are athletic. We got some tall guys that can jump. Put the fucking ball in the box and fucking do something. It doesn't got to be pretty. It's just got to work. Yeah, I like Clint Dempsey a lot. That's what we used to do when I was a kid, and that's when U.S. soccer was like doing really well. They almost beat Brazil. We lost a heartbreaker to Brazil in the '94 World Cup. I watched the same team that played that way back in '94 beat England. Playing that exact way. I watched them play at the old Foxborough Stadium, which is where Gillette Stadium is now. It's where the Patriots play. And it was the first time U.S. soccer had won against England in a long time. I was at the game. And that's exactly how they won. But U.S. soccer's got to really fucking figure something out. They can't keep... I watch these club teams that Mbappe plays for. They fucking float the ball out there and let him go get it. I don't know how many times I see Mbappe go run down a long ball and make something happen. But that's a whole different type of football.
So you think you know Wiggs.
But I got Notre Dame tonight. I'm going to be watching the game. I would love for you guys to come hang out. Let's check out one clip from PFF college football. Let's see what these guys that do this shit for a living have to say about tonight's game. You're a Jets fan? I feel your pain, Jaden. Jets are like the Patriots right now. They stink too. I read an article this week about the Jets. Their owner has a son. He's like, I think he goes to Harvard. And the Jets players and staff were saying that the son of the owner is the one making a lot of the fucking decisions for the football team. I don't even think he's 20 years old. That's fucking nuts. He doesn't know shit about football. Not a fucking thing. He plays tennis at Harvard. And he's like won one match since he's been there. Fucking crazy.
And ESPN. So let's start off with you. You have the Notre Dame passing game against the Indiana.
Yeah, Mark, you see that article? I was reading about it the other day. I'm like, get the fuck out of here. This is nuts.
Pass defense. So what you're looking out for, Riley Leonard and the Notre Dame receivers against the Indiana defense.
Okay, so for pretty much everything else here, I'm going to have a very specific thing that relates to the matchup of each game, or it's this set of players I'm looking at, or this sort of scheme. But honestly, the more I was watching Notre Dame, and Mike Denbrock's passing game is not all that complicated. We saw it at LSU last year, and it was just great first-round level players. You see them all succeeding in the NFL, executing at an extremely high level. This Notre Dame team is different. They're built to run the football, as you're going to get into, and they're not really loaded at receivers. So I think the thing for me, the more I was watching them, is I go, are they ready for this? Are they ready? Indiana is the best team that they're playing all season. Yeah, no question. I mean, next they played Louisville, they played Georgia Tech, right? Texas A&M.
Thank you, Duncan.
At the very beginning of the year, but I'm not entirely.
Yes, that's another thing I'm going to be starting soon. I started a membership where I'm going to have exclusive content just for members, lives just for members. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm going to start doing those next week, members only content. Please consider being a member. And it'll be nice with the members' lives. You won't have to deal with trolls and shit. We can just hang out, talk about whatever you guys want. I think I'm going to do my first members live. We'll research whatever you guys want or talk about whatever you guys want. Thank you, Duncan. You've always been a solid contributor to the show. I really appreciate it.
Sure what we're going to see from this Notre Dame passing game, because even against a softer schedule, it's been kind of middling. They're 26th in the country in passing grade. Riley Leonard's had a much better second half of the season down the stretch, but that's also in games against Army and Navy and Florida State and Virginia. They're 63rd in pass blocking grade. They're 59th in receiving grade and 71st in yards per attempt. Look, we know this is a team that wants to come out and run the football. And if they could run the ball every single play, they probably would. If they could go and run the ball for 350 yards, then they're going to do it. Even with Leonard,
what up, Jay? No worries.
Touchdowns this year and 16 passing touchdowns. This is just how they operate. But if they do get in a situation against an Indiana pass defense that has been really good outside of, 3 or 4 drives from Will Howard?
We're also going to have some interviews. Anyone that's a part of my channel or has a story they'd like to tell or is starting a YouTube of their own, if you would like to be do a podcast with me or a live stream, we could talk about any subject you want, or you have an interesting story, or you'd like to be interviewed or hang out. You're more than welcome to email me at nateslivetalk@yahoo.com. I also want, that's part of the reason I'm doing the membership as well, is I want to be able to have members on. If you guys want to come on a podcast and hang and talk about anything, I think it'd be a great way to, we have a close community here, so people can see what people look like. We can help each other channels grow, and have more fun that way. The membership is really just a way for us to connect with the tightest people in the group. The trolling lately has been really bad, and I feel like it's taken away from what we had going. I've been working on trying to ignore it. I apologize. It's not easy to ignore people that say rotten stuff to you over and over and over again. I don't always do it perfectly. I'm trying to ignore it, but that's also why I'm doing members content now too, for people that support the show that are getting sick of it. A lot of people are getting sick of it, I can tell. I've gotten emails about it and everything. So Let's look at the Notre Dame-Indiana matchup, and I'll shut up. Thank you guys so much. Oh, also, Jay, we got a snowstorm, so I couldn't get a hold of you, number one. Number two, did you see Michael Vick took a head coaching job at Norfolk State? He's going to be coaching their football team. I thought that was pretty cool. I know Michael Vick's made his mistakes, but I think he can help a lot of young people. He's been through a lot. He was an amazing football player. He made his mistakes. You know, I don't agree with everything he did, but I also believe in second chances.
In the Ohio State game, look, Indiana, top 6 in both, top 11 it is in both pass rush and coverage grade, right? They do things a different way a little bit than a lot of other teams. They rotate their coverages a lot. They play a boatload of cover 3, which Notre Dame has actually kind of struggled against. I think the one thing I noticed with Notre Dame is through the latter parts of the season, Riley Leonard's gotten really good at just identifying one-on-one matchups. And again, these are very favorable matchups when you're talking about the Florida States and Virginias and the Navies of the world, right? Navy's a good team, but they're not an elite defense that's going to stop Notre Dame. They just find those one-on-one matchups. And if you get to man coverage, young quarterbacks have an easier time seeing it. They can just pick their favorite guy, or you can isolate up and figure it out from there, right? Indiana playing this much zone coverage, I think, adds a different dimension. And when you think about that cover 3 I mentioned in particular, they're on the 4th most cover 3 in the nation. Riley Leonard this year is 65.8 passing grade against it. Again, not horrible. He doesn't put the ball in harm's way, but can he make those reads? And I think it's always a thing we've said with Riley Leonard too, where you don't want to blitz him and you don't want to man up and you don't want to make his life easier to see. I think it's still a thing for him when he holds the football longer than he wants to. He doesn't usually get to that second and third read.
I can do it.
He's either going to hit his first read on a quicker throw or maybe even a slot fade or something like that in Mike Denbrock's passing game, or he's going to take off running because that's what Riley Leonard does. He's honestly the same guy he's been since he was at Duke. Now we're just on a bigger stage, right? So I'm just curious to see this old Notre Dame passing game. I think his his passing grade on third down, also in the low to mid 60s, but all year with their running game and their defense and the schedule, they've hardly ever been behind in games. So it really hasn't been an issue because they haven't been in very many third and longs at all. If they do get in this spot, if Indiana gets ahead, if Notre Dame falls behind the chains, if Indiana's run defense is winning the battle, I honestly think straight up we're just going to find out if Notre Dame's passing game is good enough. I mean, their leading receiver, Bo Collins, has 427 yards this year. That's it. I mean, this is what you're talking about. They have hidden this passing game, I think, just about all year. There's been a handful of big throws. It was a throw and a busted coverage down the seam against Louisville. Navy came out zero blitzing them for whatever reason. They came out zero blitzing them for, and that wasn't going to work against Riley Leonard. But I'm curious to see if Curtis Rourke finds his rhythm and Indiana gets ahead or gets Notre Dame behind the chains. Can they throw their way out of issues? Because I think we actually have no idea if they can or not.
Yeah, absolutely. And, for Notre Dame to have to rely on Riley Leonard's arm in this game, that means you shut down what Notre Dame wants to do, and that is run the piss out of the football. So, Dawn, I really think this Notre Dame run game against the Indiana run defense, it's a heavyweight matchup. I think it could very well decide who wins and loses this ball game. Because I mentioned it, Notre Dame's offense is completely centered around their fantastic run game. The Fighting Irish are 3rd in the FBS and EPA per run this year. They lead the Power 4 with 6.7 yards per carry, 4 yards after contact per carry as well. You got a 3-headed monster in that Notre Dame backfield between Jeremiah Love, Riley Leonard, and Jadarian Price. Those 3 have helped Notre Dame have the 4th best rushing grade in college football this year. But it's not just them. You see some teams that have a superstar runner, but not really a great offensive line. Notre Dame is a damn good offensive line as well in terms of run blocking. They are tied for 7th in the country with a 77.7 run blocking grade. So by all accounts, this might be the best rushing attack in college football. And I'm even counting Boise State into that with Ashton Jeanine, how good he is. Because it's everything they've got between Riley Leonard, one of the best mobile quarterbacks in the nation, Jeremiah Love, who I think is going to enter next year as the best running back in college football. I actually put out a tweet after the Heisman on Saturday, saying who my finalists are going to be for next year's Heisman, a way too early one. I had Jeremiah Love on that list because he has been that freaking good this year. And Jadarian Price is a great number 2 back as well. And then also the offensive line, like I said, is kicking ass right now in the run game. Indiana, has been very stout against the run this year, though. They're currently tied for 4th in the country at a 94.1 run defense grade, and they only allow 3.7 yards per carry, also 4th in the country. And Dawn, they've only allowed 0.8 yards before contact per attempt. That leads the nation, less than a yard before contact per attempt for Indiana so far this season. So diving even more into it, because it's kind of simple to say, oh, it's a great run D against a really good run game. We'll see what happens there. I wanted to go into like what they run, like how they kind of structure their run game around this. So the Notre Dame, what you got to know about the run game, they run inside zone a lot. They run inside zone about 48% of their rushing attempts this year, which is the 18th most in the country. Indiana, though, very strong against inside zone. Right now, 8th among FBS defenses in EPA per allowed on inside zone runs. Also, Riley Leonard, I mentioned before, has one of the best legs of any quarterback in America. He's currently 5th among Power 4 quarterbacks with 764 rushing yards on the year. But Indiana has really yet to allow a big game from a quarterback on the ground. They allow 16 rushing yards from quarterbacks per game. So Indiana hasn't really let a quarterback beat them on the ground this year. So if Indiana can get Notre Dame behind the chains and force what you said before, an average Notre Dame passing attack to beat them, Indiana could very well, and I think will, pull off the upset in South Bend. But easier said than done, though, because I think as good as Indiana's run D has been this year, they have not faced a run game as dominant as Notre Dame's yet. So I really think that match between Notre Dame's run game against Indiana's elite run defense, this could really decide the game, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think it's going to be so much fun to watch the trench battle, first of all, when you're talking about Notre Dame's offensive line that was inexperienced coming into the year and now facing Michael Kamara and C.J. West and James Carpenter and all the guys Indiana has up front, especially all those James Madison guys, right? And I think you mentioned that last part about Riley Leonard, and that's such a huge part of the attack, too, whether he has the football and it's a design quarterback run or the option game or the threat of the option game or even as part of, what Leonard can do. I think they've done a better job in the second half of the season, putting in even more design rollouts and moving Leonard in. There's just a constant threat of his legs. I think Jalen Walker, the middle linebacker, is really a guy that's going to be key for Indiana stopping this. And especially, I think, look, beyond even the trench battle, you got to tackle, man. You got to tackle these guys, and you got to tackle well. It's going to be 20 degrees out there on Friday night. Jeremiah Love is good at breaking tackles as anybody in the country. Jadarian Price is tough to tackle. Riley Leonard's as tough to tackle a quarterback as anybody in the country. He's a really good athlete, underrated speed. So I think Jalen Walker and Aiden Fisher at linebacker play a big part in this. And again, I think we have to think about goals. We've talked about this in some other games, say like when we've covered a Kansas State or a UCF or something like that. The goal is not to hold Notre Dame to 50 rushing yards. That's not going to happen. The goal is that Notre Dame is going to want to run for 3 or 350, and if you can hold them to 150, 175, then you're in a position to win a ball game, right? You just can't.
Statistics are big in everything in America, especially sports. And it's why some American sports aren't doing so well anymore, believe it or not. Yeah, they look for statistics in everything over here in the United States, in every sport. Because it's hard to argue statistics, right? Because if you do something 1,000 times and you average it out, it tells you a lot about certain things.
Can't let them go crazy on you, and you have to make enough tackles when you have them. You got to have them, because we've seen it over and over with Jeremiah Love. I mean, is he one of the 5 toughest dudes to tackle in college football? I think he is. Yeah. I mean, he's just incredible and so much talent. Is what, a true sophomore? Is that right? I mean, just crazy level of talent in their backfield, and Indiana's going to have to play their best game of the year in run defense.
Absolutely. So let's go over to the other run game. I'll let you start off here with the Indiana run game against the Notre Dame run defense. What should we be looking out for when they have the ball?
So there is a weird part of this for me with Notre Dame, because their defensive line just has not been as good in run defense this year, and they only lost one guy, Javonte John Baptiste, to the NFL, the edge player from last year, but it's mostly the same crew, and they just haven't been as good. Last year, they were 5th in the country in run defense grade as a defensive line. This year, they're 90th. And it's odd because, I mean, they still don't give up a ton of yards because you got guys on the back end, Jack Kaiser, Drake Bowen, Xavier Watts is tackling better. Leonard Moore at corner has contributed to that. He's got a 90 run defense grade. But up front, it hasn't been as good. Howard Cross and Riley Mills and all of that. And when I think about this, I don't think Indiana does anything crazy with their run schemes. In the beginning of the year, they had a few more trick plays. But for the most part, they want to get off tackle. They want to kind of spread this thing out and move these linebackers a little bit wider. And when you look at Indiana and their Power 4 ranks of getting off tackle, right, in these outside runs, 11th in the Power 4 in rushing grade, 4th in run blocking grade. Their zone schemes are really good in their zone schemes. 18th in yards per attempt, 17th in explosive run percentage. We'll see if they can get between the tackles and really challenge Kaiser and those guys, especially on the second level downhill. But I think at the end of the day, Indiana wants to run outside with their zone schemes, and they want to complement that with the RPO game that we've talked about. It's a very RPO-heavy scheme. They can get those glance throws, those slants in behind linebackers, behind the second level of the defense. But I think that it would really benefit them, obviously, in 20-degree weather on the road if they had balance. And I think it starts for them.
I think snow showers, too, I think are in the forecast.
Yeah, it might be. I'm not sure if it'll be during the game or not. But look, Justice Ellison and Tyson Lawton, they're two really good players. They're two good backs. You know, are they game breakers necessarily? Are they 4-3 running guys that are going to take 80-yard carries down the field? No, but I think we've seen in past times, I think even in the Ohio State game, they ran well, especially Ellison, especially when they turned the corner in some outside zone. They ran well in that game. I don't think they're going to be afraid of Notre Dame's defensive line, even though we know there's talented guys up there. But that's going to be the goal for Indiana, I think, is to get off tackle. And then if they want to work between the tackles, use that as the second layer. And then you start working in the RPOs and everything that works in this offense.
Yeah, so I have the Indiana passing game against the Notre Dame pass defense. And really what I looked at is, all right, can this Hoosiers offensive line hold up? Because if you look at Indiana's 2 worst games of the year, they had a loss to Ohio State where they got convincingly beaten that one, and a 5-point win over Michigan. We actually at both of those games, Dolan. There are the 2 worst performances in pass protection as well for Indiana. The Hoosiers in those 2 games against Ohio State and Michigan had a 45.6 pass blocking grade. They had an 83.5 pass blocking grade in their other 10 games. They almost doubled their pass blocking grade in the other 10 games compared to what it was against Ohio State and Michigan. And in particular, had a lot of issues when Ohio State and Michigan blitzed them in that game. The Buckeyes and Wolverines, when they sent a blitz, got a pressure on 48% of the time. Almost half the time they sent a blitz, they got a pressure in that game, and they sacked Curtis Fork 7 times when they blitzed him as well. In the other 10 games, the Hoosiers only gave up 9 sacks against the blitz and a 26% pressure rate. So 7 sacks against the blitz against Ohio State and Michigan, 9 sacks in the other 10 games, almost a 50% pressure rate against the blitz in those 2 games, and 26%. So really, it was by far their worst pass blocking they've ever done this year against those 2 teams. Michigan is first at pass rushing grade. Ohio State is 18th at pass rushing grade. Notre Dame is not too far behind. They're right now 25th at pass rush grade this year. Indiana has not played another team that's in the top 25. So this is very easily the 3rd best pass rushing team they played all season long. And the Fighting Irish blitz a good amount. They blitz on 40% of their snaps this year, as 40th in America, and a little bit ahead of what Ohio State and Michigan do on the year, which is right around 39% as well. So I think if you hold up better in pass protection in this game, you could have a great matchup because you have Curtis Rourke and those receivers against Notre Dame's secondary. Rourke is 2nd in the nation with a 91.8 passing grade this year. The Hoosiers lead the nation with a 90.8 receiving grade, but Notre Dame is 2nd to only Texas with a 92.4 coverage grade this year. So as enticing as that matchup is between Curtis Rourke and his receivers against Notre Dame secondary, we can't get to that unless Indiana blocks well in this game. So I'm really looking forward to seeing whether or not they can hold up better against a really good pass rush, or if it'll look a lot like the Michigan and Ohio State game where the offense completely stalled out because it just could not block anyone.
Yeah, Rourke is a true pocket passer who's not really going to escape much of that. Even though he has I think he's leading the nation in passing grade under pressure this year, he's going to do it from the pocket, right? And I think that's the big thing that you just mentioned. You can't even get to those receivers. You can't get to the drop back game unless you can protect against blitzes. Against a 4-man rush, I don't have any issue with Indiana. I really don't. It's against blitzes. It was Wink Martindale first, like you mentioned. It was Jim Knowles after that. And how much of that, look, Notre Dame blitzes 40% of the time, but there's nothing in the rule book that says they can't do it more than that, right? I can go all the way back to week 1 when they played Texas A&M.
Yeah.
They blitzed the shit out of Connor Wigman early in that game, and it threw off A&M's entire game plan, right? So I think what would concern me the most is who's going to win on the outside matters, because you're going to see, I think, a lot of man-to-man coverage from Notre Dame. But both of these teams, I think, and this is a case for anybody, but I think in this game especially, they don't want to be in 3rd and long. No. For Notre Dame, it's the fact that, they're just not used to it, and they don't have that many weapons on the outside. And for Indiana, it's that exact thing. It's preventing those blitzes from even happening. If you're in 3rd and 2, they're going to be much less inclined to get the blitzes going. If you're good on early downs, if you're running with good tempo, I'm curious to see how fast Indiana wants to go offensively, if they can find a rhythm, or if Notre Dame's just going to blitz them from first down and go right off rip and go, okay, beat it. Go ahead, and even if it's run blitzes, right? That's the thing that would concern me the most for Indiana. I think on either side of the ball is how can we pick up blitzes against something, I would call Notre Dame an elite defense, right? Yeah. Can we pick up blitzes? Because I think a 4-man rush, they will be okay. But how often is Notre Dame going to apply that pressure, especially early in the game?
And I know Benjamin Morrison's out for the season, but I still think Notre Dame's secondary is very good enough to hold up, even if you send 7-8 guys.
Leonard Moore and Christian Gray and Xavier Watts,
yeah,
sneaking around back there. Yep. Jack Kaiser flying around the field. I mean, it's
they can survive.
It's the second highest graded coverage unit for a reason. And they play a lot of man-to-man. They have the ability to play a lot of man-to-man effectively. So I'm with you. I think the blitzing is probably the number one concern for me for the Hoosiers.
Yeah, because I think if you look at it and you say, listen, there's some secondaries where you can't blitz that much because they can't survive. If you need as many guys back there as possible. Notre Dame is like, no, we got man-to-man coverage. You send as many as you want, and we got you on the back end. And I think you look at, you mentioned before, Wink Martindale, brilliant defensive mind. Jim Knowles, brilliant defensive mind. Marcus Freeman is the head coach of Notre Dame. He's a brilliant defensive mind as well. He definitely watched those 2 games.
With 2 weeks to prepare. Those are the 2 games you have to watch because those are 2 games of relatively equal competition, right? Yeah. At least on that side of the ball, absolutely.
And not only that, Dolan, there's the only 2 games Indiana didn't blow out the opposing team. So if you're Marcus Freeman, it's like, okay, what happened in those 2 games? Because every other game, Indiana's blown out everyone. But in those 2 games, they didn't. They barely beat Michigan, and they lost pretty convincingly to Ohio State. So if you're Marcus Freeman, say, hey, watch those 2 games, see what happened defensively to slow them down. I think he's going to look at it and say, hey, we got to blitz a lot in this game and see what happens there. So, Dawn, in the battle for Indiana, which we've been hoping for all year, which will be an electric game that we're going to be at, who will win and who will move on to play Georgia in the Sugar Bowl?
This was so hard. I don't know about you, but I actually feel like and both of these teams kind of got criticized for softer schedules and this and that. But we're here, and they both went 11-1, right?
Yeah.
Look, Indiana needs to do 3 things to win this game. Contain the run enough so it doesn't take the game over. Force Riley Leonard to hold the football, right? Yep. Don't blitz him. Exact opposite. Don't blitz Riley Leonard. You're making his life easier. Just don't do it. Make him stand there. And like you mentioned, pass protect against Notre Dame's blitzes. Yeah. That's just going to be that to me is good. I think you're going to know right off rip, especially if Indiana gets the ball first, what Marcus Freeman's plan is early in this game. This was hard, but I'm actually going to take the Hoosiers to do just enough. Just enough. I'm taking Indiana 27-24. I think they've got one more big ride in them. And I think, boy, the fact that this is like the biggest football game in the state of Indiana is crazy too. But I think, look, you know a fun stat I found too? Curtis Rourke, all right, over the last 3 years of any active quarterback in college football has the highest passing grade in November or later.
Interesting.
I'm going with it. I think Curtis Rourke's Curtis Rourke's got one more big one in him. I think this run defense, I think Michael Kamara and Jalen Walker and these guys in this run defense, they do just enough so Notre Dame doesn't take it over. I think that's where it starts. We're going to know very early in this game how physical Indiana's willing to be. But if they can pick up blitzes and make Riley Leonard beat them, I'm going to take them 27-24.
Curtis Rourke's like Reggie Jackson, Mr. November instead of Mr. October. So, all right, yeah. I like that. All right, I am going Notre Dame. I got them winning 31-21 in this game. I think Indiana's run D has been spectacular all year. But like I mentioned before, they have not faced a rushing game as elite as Notre Dame's this year. So I think they'll rely on that, and I am worried. I am very worried about Indiana holding up against the blitz and holding up against Notre Dame's pass rush in general in this game. And I think Notre Dame's got a brilliant defensive mind in Marcus Freeman. He definitely noticed that on tape, and I think he is going to be sending a lot of blitzes Indiana's way. So I think that will ultimately slow down Indiana's offense enough. I was with you. I really was close to picking Indiana in this one, but I do think Notre Dame's rushing attack will get the advantage, a slight advantage. And then I really think the big key is that Indiana's just not going to hold up well enough in pass protection to allow Curtis Rourke and those elite receivers to truly win this game. So the first game that we differ on, Dawn, and the first game we're talking about today, I got Notre Dame winning. You got Indiana winning to move on to play Georgia in the Sugar Bowl in the quarterfinal round. Hey, thanks for watching another episode of the PFF College Football Show. Please make sure you guys subscribe to the channel.
Subscribe to
I got Notre Dame tonight. Notre Dame's one of my favorite football. Notre Dame is my favorite college football team. So I'm biased. I'm rooting with my heart a little bit tonight. Yes, you heard that correctly. There's different bowl games in college. They call them bowls. bowl games. They play the Rose Bowl, the Sugar Bowl, the Orange Bowl. All different bowl games. They all have sponsors and shit. It's really just a money grab. They call it a different bowl. You know, you're not in the Super Bowl, you're in the Sugar Bowl. And then years ago, each team used to only play one bowl game. Now that it's a 12-team playoff, they'll play multiple bowl games if they win. But I expect Notre Dame's defense to get after Indiana. I think Notre Dame will be able to run the ball. I think Notre Dame being at home will actually help the defense as well. I think that place is going to be loud. I think they're going to be rocking in South Bend, Indiana tonight. It's cold. There's a chance of snow. This could end up being a nasty, ugly game as far as the weather. And Notre Dame being a running team, I think that helps them. So I am going to go do a few things. I will be back in about an hour and 15 minutes, and we'll watch this game together. Please like, share, subscribe. I will be back at 7:45 to start covering Notre Dame versus Indiana. First game of the NCAA college football playoffs. Thank you guys for joining me. I will see you guys in a little over an hour. Please join us for the game. We're going to have some fun.